Good afternoon and welcome to Northport, a view from here. My name is Gene Matthews and I'll be your host. Today we're going to center on the utility bond referendum, which is going to come before the people of Northport on March 14th. This program will be broken into two parts. The first part will be a film outlining some of the details of the referendum, and the second part we'll be speaking with Cindy Mick, our utility director, Anne Marie Riccardi, our finance director, and Ray Shimakubu of Boyle Engineering. I'm sure you will find this tape very interesting and informative.
Northport is going to grow no matter what. It's grown tremendously in the last 12 years that I've been here. And I think if we give it a direction, it's to our benefit.
We will control growth in the future. This is the single most important issue, in my opinion, in the city of Northport at this time.
This is about the future of the city of Northport.
This is progress, and this is a community that is growing, and we can't stop progress.
Northport is just beginning to come into its own in terms of being a magnet for new businesses. However, we have all the ingredients for success.
On March 14th, the people of Northport will have the opportunity to vote yes on a bond issue to increase our wastewater treatment capacity and begin extending sewer and water lines as part of a comprehensive plan to manage growth. The city has commissioned this video to help you learn the facts behind this important vote. But we also brought together some of your neighbors to have a conversation about the future of Northport. You'll hear their reasons for supporting this referendum. But first, a few facts. What are the bonds for? The bonds will finance expansion of our wastewater treatment facilities to keep up with demand and to extend water and sewer lines as part of the city's plan to manage and control growth. What is the total amount of the bond? The bond is for $9.92 million. $6.2 million for needed expansion of the wastewater treatment plant, and a little more than $3 million to extend water and sewer lines. Northport's Municipal Bonding Authority and excellent credit rating allow us to borrow money at extremely low interest rates and pay it back over an extended period of time. Will water and sewer rates go up for current customers? No. Current ratepayers will not see any increase in their rates as a result of this bond. The bond will be paid back through development fees and new growth in the rate base. Here's how a yes vote benefits you. Benefit number one, managing growth. Growth will happen in Northport. The choice is this. Do we want to see the city grow in a compact, managed fashion as a result of the fiscally and environmentally sound extension of sewer and water lines? Or would you be satisfied with haphazard development because septic tanks and wells for homes and package plants for business and industry are the only available options?
One way to control the growth is to provide the utilities to the areas where they want growth to go to. With that said, I think the areas that they have targeted for our first pilot program for the utility extension are two primary examples of the areas where they need the growth to go to make it more manageable.
This is the area that we're coming into, even if it was only for a test case. I'm sure that the citizens of Northport will be delighted when they begin to feel the impact of orderly growth of sewer and water. When that happens, we will have an organized city, and there will be no more of this hit-and-miss business.
Planned growth is where we want to direct the development and direct the businesses, and we want to have the areas like neighborhoods. We want to build up a neighborhood instead of having sporadic building here, there, and everywhere.
Having that sporadic growth is not planned. We have no control over that. What this will do, in a large portion, will allow us to control the growth even better than we have controlled it in past.
The utility extensions are going to focus growth to the areas where we have identified where it is needed, and it's also going to slow the growth to the areas that we don't want.
Northport is a very well-planned community, and it's this is an opportunity to be sure that those plans can come to fruition over time.
Benefit number two, preventing water and sewer rates from increasing. Your water and sewer rates will not go up if the bond passes. But if the referendum fails, rather than the bond paying for these needed improvements, which will still have to be made, rates will have to be raised. By increasing sewer capacity through bonding, the economies of scale will come into play. More customers spread the burden of paying for improvements and increase the utility's financial stability.
The city is very wise in addressing this issue early in the city's infancy rather than after the fact and addressing a problem. So what they're doing is they're looking into the future, and because of that, they're saving the taxpayers money, they're going to save the ratepayers money.
As we add more customers to the system, the cost of the system inherently goes down. The more people that are utilizing the system, the less cost incurred.
I think the main concern of the residents of Holiday Park has to be, what is this going to cost me? How is it going to affect me and my pocketbook? The present taxpayers won't be affected by this.
The way that the engineering firm that the city has hired has come out with their report, which is available in City Hall, it indicates how they have a method by which there will be no increase in the rates because of the impact of the installation of the sewer and water.
Our engineers and the cost analysis that has been done on this all show that to pay the service on the note, we won't have to increase rates.
It's growth paying for growth. As the people come in and they tie into the sewer and water lines, they pay an impact fee. That in no way affects the present ratepayers.
Benefit number 3, protecting our environment. By expanding the capacity of our sewer plant, we will guarantee our ability to provide clean water for our neighborhoods. Without this extra capacity, future homes will have to be served by septic tanks. And even if a small number of those septic tanks should fail, the whole neighborhood could be contaminated. Fewer septic tanks also mean fewer trees being cut down to make way for their installation.
That's why it's real important to run the water lines and sewer lines in firsthand. That allows builders to save more trees, not change the grade so bad on the sites, and you end up with a nicer, more expensive looking neighborhood. And you really didn't spend any more money. That's the beautiful part about it. It's one of the few things where you're actually going to get more value than you pay for, and you can't always say that.
I think that trend of say, like septic tanks is a constant threat to the ecology.
There's always a possibility of contamination to the soil and the water.
We have to get away from that, and we have to move ahead and do things correctly.
The septic systems have a life, and the replacement costs for septic systems can be in several $1,000s range, whereas paying a water and sewer bill is metered out through a monthly billing cycle, which is much less financial impact over the long run.
We do have a good quality of life. We have beautiful trees. We have places where people can raise their children. And this creek and this park is an example of what the city of Northport stands for. What we did in this instance is preserve what is best in the city.
Benefit number 4, boosting Northport's economy, creating jobs, and lowering the property tax burden. The well-managed commercial and residential growth we've all recently seen happened because our utility had the capacity to serve these developments. If we don't invest now to increase utility capacity, that managed growth will grind to a halt. The most cost-effective way to invest is through the issuance of the bond. And managed growth, both commercial and residential, will help decrease the tax burden on individual homeowners.
Bringing good business into the community certainly generates a healthy economy here.
If the infrastructure wasn't in place, we would have certainly looked elsewhere, because infrastructure actually is what brings businesses and makes the decision to come to this area, and it's a very important part of the overall component.
In the last year, we've seen 250,000 square feet of new business development come in and well over 100 new jobs created. We would like to be able to sustain that growth and be sure that the kind of growth we have has that we're anticipating has the infrastructure in place to accommodate it.
It's important to me to have that sustained growth and to have the industrial growth come here. And I'm not talking heavy industry. Nobody's talking smelters. Nobody's talking those sorts of things. We're talking about clean, sustainable industry.
Atlantic Teleconnect is a high-tech manufacturer that manufactures and produces data cables, actually, and components for data cables and fiber optics. Atlantic Teleconnect was a company that located to Northport from Punta Gorda. They currently have 100 employees, and will be bringing a lot of jobs to the area.
I'm sure all the moms want their children to be able to work close to home, so that to keep the family together instead of having to ship them out to Sarasota an hour away just to work.
Through a study that Sarasota County government did, they had found that commercial businesses, for every dollar of taxes that they pay, the city typically, or the county typically, provides them with 25 cents of services. So in effect, what's happening is the commercial enterprises actually subsidize the citizens. So it's a good thing to attract industry and some commercial growth, as long as it's a managed type growth, and it's good for the community.
We have a couple of small plazas, small malls, and that, but it really doesn't do the job for us. And so we would be happy to see more stores and restaurants here in Northport.
Having the infrastructure in place certainly helps bring the commercial businesses, which will diversify the tax base in the area, which will lower the burden from the tax base from a residential standpoint.
The sewer and water line extension being extended will obviously entice businesses to be here. With this high school, my children will be able to go to high school here, go to college, and hopefully get jobs here and stay in this community. The high school would not be here, would not be even a possibility without the water and sewer line extension.
Benefit number 5, more reliable fire protection. The extension of water lines to more neighborhoods will mean that more homeowners will be able to have the assurance of knowing that city-supplied water is readily available in case of fire.
We ran about 2,700 calls last year. So about 600, 700 of those were probably fire calls. By extending the water lines, they will be able to provide us with more fire hydrants in the area, which is essential to protect property from structure fire, wildfire, things like that. And our water supply is essential. Insurance rates are based upon what's called an ISO rating, and the ISO ratings, part of the way they figure those out is dependent upon the level of fire service provided to an area, and an essential part of that is water supply. So by providing more fire hydrants to an area, they can hopefully reduce the insurance rates that the people in the areas are going to pay. So the benefit of having the fire hydrant is twofold. It's going to provide better fire service, and it could provide a lower insurance rate.
Thank you for listening to all the reasons passing this referendum is so important. The benefits are clear. Managing growth, preventing water and sewer rates from increasing, protecting our environment, boosting Northport's economy, improving fire safety. Make no mistake, the course we choose will have a profound effect on the look and livability of our community in the future. And in Northport, the right kind of future can start on March 14th. Please, vote yes to protect Northport's future.
Have you seen Northport lately? Take a minute and take a look.
We really do enjoy nature, and we found it all here, right in our own backyard. Love fishing and boating on the Mayaca. You never know what you might see out there. We toured the whole state of Florida and found that Northport had everything that we wanted.
There's a lot of natural beauty, and there's a lot of wildlife here. I love the open spaces, and I love the quiet.
If you're intrigued by what you just saw, pay us a visit, and you'll see a lot more.
Welcome back to the second half of Northport, A View from Here. Again, we're dealing with the utility bond referendum issue of March 14th. We're going to start off today's questions with Ray Shimakubo of Boyle Engineering. Good afternoon, Ray.
Good afternoon, Gene.
Ray, give us a little rundown on what your role is within the city of Northport, and especially as pertains to the utility department. What does Boyle Engineering and yourself do?
Sure. Boyle Engineering has assisted the city over the last 4 years on municipal engineering projects, stormwater, roads and drainage, utilities. I've been privileged enough to assist the city on several important utility projects. Recently, the Utility Master Plan, the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Programs. So I'm very thankful and happy to be of assistance to the city.
Yeah, the film I found was very informative, but of course when you show something, it creates other questions. And you mentioned the master utility plan. How does this bond referendum relate to that utility master plan?
The proposed bond program is a resultant of the utility master plan. However, the utility master plan is based upon the city's comprehensive plan. The city's comprehensive plan, which was developed by the planning department, was accepted by the city commission as well as the state of Florida. The comprehensive plan has specified objectives as serving the entire city of Northport with potable water and sewer utilities, and also to provide infrastructure, to provide a level of service to growth, existing growth, future growth within the city. These are very important objectives, and when you look at the projects within the bond program as it stands right now, there are projects that are dedicated to fulfilling those goals. Just as an example, one of the projects is a line extension, an extension of water and sewer into neighborhoods that are currently not served. The other project, main project of the bond program, is the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant to expand its capacity. So these two projects are directly answering the objective and goals of the city's comprehensive plan.
Okay, and you would say that this is I'll use the word concurrency. Is this a concurrency issue? And perhaps you could explain what concurrency is to the audience.
Sure. To further the link on the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan, when the city was preparing the comprehensive plan, there were state statutes concerning concurrent management systems, concurrency. And essentially, the state requires that facilities, infrastructure, be available that is concurrent to growth. So in other words, to plan for growth rather than to react to growth.
So what you're saying is that the plan is a proactive approach to the need for utilities rather than being reactive and doing it down the road when it's kind of too late?
Yes, sir. It's a proactive approach on the city's part to provide the facilities that are required to handle the existing growth, the future growth.
Thank you very much, Ray. Anne Marie, as Director of Finance, why is now the time to go for a bond referendum versus some other time?
If you've watched the video, and I know you have, and you've heard Ray's speaking about the importance of these, the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant and the water and sewer lines extensions. Once you understand the importance of those, you'll say, what next? The Northport Commission, the utility department itself, the utility advisory board, have all now believe in the importance of these projects. So they came to me and said, Anne Marie, now what are we going to do? Now is the time to finance that. I reviewed our options. That is, how am I going to pay for a $6 million wastewater treatment plant expansion and a $3 million water and sewer line extension? After reviewing the options, it's clearly the most cost-effective way to pay for these is by financing it. That is, using a bond issue to pay for this over a longer period of time. And in essence, what ends up happening is new growth will end up repaying the debt on this particular bond issue. The city is in the enviable position, if you will, of being able to use our excellent credit rating that that's in reality insurable up to a AAA credit rating.
That's quite a good rating for a city our size.
That's a very good rating. You're absolutely right. In addition, we issue tax-exempt debt, which means in the long run, using bonds to finance this project will save the city money.
Okay, very good. Whenever we, as taxpayers hear about bond money and any type of money that government does take in, whether it's the city government, county government, or federal government, we always wonder, what kind of scrutiny is this under? Is anyone checking? It's not the fox watching the hen house. What kind of scrutiny do we go under? Are we under?
The city is actually very lucky to have the same person in charge of the utility department now who was in charge during the first bond issuance. The utility director understands the requirements of the bond that was issued back then and has ensured that the money was spent in compliance. In addition to the scrutiny of the utility department, the second step is the finance department. The finance department reviews every expenditure that goes out of the city. We make sure that, again, the expenditures are in compliance with the revenue source. In that case, it would have been in compliance with the utility bond. After that, though, we've additionally got something that I'm very proud of is the auditors review our work, Cindy's work and my work. The auditors have given us a clean audit, which means that we've spent money in accordance with the requirements. But we've had a clean audit for as long as I've been with the city. We've been awarded the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement, and that is for excellence in financial reporting. So we've actually done a good job of keeping up with that.
That's good to know as a citizen of Northport. Who are the auditors? Are they privately hired? Are they government auditors? Or
they're external auditors. They are selected from the City Commission. They technically work for the City Commission, and this particular firm audits other governments.
Okay, very good. Cindy Mick, it seems that it all falls on your shoulders as the utility director, as the guidance counselor, if you will, of the needs of Northport. And tell us what would happen if we didn't act proactively. Ray had mentioned proactive before, and I think that's a good word. What would happen if we weren't proactive in this particular area?
If we're not able to have the financing of this bond issue to pay for the needed improvements in order to accommodate the growth that we're seeing in Northport, I'm afraid that the ratepayers would end up being burdened with the cost of the expansion and the infrastructure that we need to accommodate the growth. The other aspect that I think that we would see if we were not able to finance the improvements with this bond issue is that some of the improvements might not happen. Therefore, we might see businesses and industries building with septic tanks and package plants, and we'd see the 75,000 lots in Northport that we could serve with water and sewer at no cost to the ratepayers, let the growth pay for it. That I'm afraid that we would see that develop with septic tanks, and the future of Northport would be to react in maybe 10, 15, 20 years at a much higher cost to replace those with central sewer later on.
Are there any environmental impacts if we don't do this?
There's a lot of environmental impacts. Initially, I think that you're going to see Northport growing without the trees and higher fill in order to accommodate the septic systems and package plants if we are not able to supply water and sewer. So there'd be that aesthetic environmental impact initially. But also in the long run, package plants do cause pollution, and septic tanks do eventually leach and cause pollution problems. That's a well-known fact. And we can be proactive and avoid those kind of environmental problems.
When we look at something like this, we tend to look at it through a single set of eyes, as a single issue, and we don't relate it to anything across the board that government does, yet everything you do relates with what everybody else does because it impacts. How would not doing this impact on, let's say, ad valorem taxes or impact fees and so on and so forth? Is there a financial impact by not doing this?
Absolutely. One of the reasons that the city bought the utility was because of the impacts it has on all the other aspects of our government, such as in being able to encourage commercial development and being able to encourage good industry that we can encourage if we have central water and sewer available for those industries. It'll begin to shift the tax burden from the current homeowners to the commercial developers and to the industry, which will be good news for the taxpayers as well as the ratepayers, because again, with that type of industry coming in, those customers will definitely help pay for the infrastructure and decrease the burden from the ratepayers also.
Now, Sarasota County itself is going through a problem up in the Philippi Creek. I know I was personally involved in that, where the septic systems, in fact, failed in the developments. It polluted Philippi Creek, and the state came in and all types of things. What would be the impact to the residents of Northport if something like this happened?
I think it would be similar, and I think that Northport, developing slower behind Sarasota County, can certainly learn from Sarasota County by avoiding the high cost of having to come back in and provide for central sewer at a later date. And Philippi Creek is a good example of the high cost that can result from not being proactive.
Yeah, and one of the sad parts of that is that they had the opportunity to get central sewer, and they opted not to, the powers to be, whoever those powers were at that particular time. Proactivity, I guess, is probably the most is the real word here. What's the next phase that you see beyond this one?
I think that after we get through this bond issue, that we will continue to see the growth in Northport. We'll see the beauty of having a much more financially secure government, financially secure utility, and I think that then we'll begin to continue to expand into neighborhoods with other improvements that'll make Northport a much nicer place to live.
It's impossible to cover all the details, you know, in a short program like this. We're almost out of time already. Where can people pick up additional information on this, or even to view the tape that they saw just once today?
They are more than welcome to come into the utility office to view the tape, or to the Planning and Zoning Department to review the tape. We will have literature available both in City Hall, Utilities Department. They can contact the library. We will have tapes available there. So they can give us a call at the utility office, and we'd be more than happy to help them.
Okay, that's great. Ray, do you have anything to add on the need for the expansion?
Well, yes. Again, I'd like to clarify that of the major projects that are being supported by the bond program, the plant expansion, the wastewater treatment plant expansion, is required. The city is running out of capacity, and as Cindy had mentioned, that if the referendum, for example, does not pass, that will still be a required infrastructure improvement. So with that said, that is something that will be required. As far as the improvements into the neighborhoods, as Cindy also has mentioned, the next step, there's a sequential pattern toward moving forward and serving neighborhoods that are prioritized, that are easy to serve, that could be served cost effectively. So the program, if all things work well, will continue in that manner. Okay.
Is there a known cost to what we absolutely have to do now? Is there a percentage of that bond issue that's going into actual costs right now? What would be the percentage?
Right. The percentage of the projects are, the wastewater treatment plant is roughly 2/3 of the bond amount. The extension...
And that's the required amount?
The required amount, yes, sir.
2/3, okay.
And the expansion into the neighborhoods, the remaining 1/3.
Okay. And do you have any final comments, Anne Marie, as we close up, or Cindy?
Just to thank you for having us on your program again, and hope that the citizens will vote for this important issue.
Okay. Well, I hope we've given them sufficient information to let them go to the polls armed with the right information. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for visiting us here today. This is Gene Matthews, your host from Northport, A View from Here.